Hello, welcome to Boardgames with Niramas. I'm Joseph, and today I am back with another top 10 solo games list. Now, 2019, 2 years ago in the summer there, I did do a top 10 solo games video where I talked about my favorite solo games. Then, in 2 years, a lot of things have happened, especially last year, of course, there's been a lot of solo game played, and there's been a bunch of good games released as well since then, or I might have discovered some games that I hadn't played back then. So now it's time for another list. Before we get to number 10 here though and get started, I will mention that on this list there's not going to be any repeats from 2019. The same games are not going to show up. I thought it was more fun to do it that way, so these are 10 different games that I really enjoy and I have ranked. Now, if you haven't seen that already, you can go check it out, the top 10 solo games list I did 2 years ago, because then you get 10 more recommendations on good games to play by yourself. So link will be in the description for that, and tell me in the comment section what you think about these picks I have on my list, and if you have any good suggestions yourself, what are your favorite solo games? And also, if you like the video, press the thumbs up button or subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. So now let's get going with number 10. So number 10 here is Aeons End, and Aeons End is a card game, as you can see, a deck building game. It comes in a bunch of different versions as well. There's been a few different Kickstarters with different releases. I haven't played them all. I played the Legacy game as well. I played, I think, 2 or 3 out of the main boxes and a bunch of small expansions as well. Really enjoy Aeons End, and the reason why I like it so much, especially in solo, is because of the twists it has to sort of regular standard deck building as we see in a lot of board games. In this one, you are building up your deck, and when you discard cards, you decide in which order they are discarded. I think that's the main thing of this game, because then once you are out of cards in your deck, instead of shuffling your discard pile like you do in most deck builders, right, and then you form a new draw pile, instead you just flip it over. So the order you discard cards in are really important, and if you have good memory or you get into the game, you can also start figuring out how to get certain cards want to be together because they combo off each other. Then you want to make sure to discard them next to each other so that you have a good chance to draw them in your hand later on, right? It also has some other interesting things, like you're fighting a boss or like a nemesis, and the nemesises are very different in play style, which is something I really enjoy. You can have some of them have a lot of minions, and you have to act a certain way. You have to build your deck in a certain way depending on the strengths and the weaknesses of the nemesis, which also makes it very interesting. And this game also has a sort of Dominion-esque from the Dominion game that started the whole deck building genre. It has this market, as you can see here, where every time you play, you can randomize this, or there's presets. You will have different cards that you can purchase during the game and build your deck with, and that defines your strategy and defines how you want to build your deck. And of course, how the Nemesis plays and what character you play. Very, very variable. There's a lot of variability in this game and a lot of replay value, and yeah, you can just keep playing a lot. It's a really fun one. Aeons End, my number 10. And at number 9 we have the latest release, I think, of all the games on this list, Red Rising from Stonemaier Games. Played this quite a bit here, in the recent months. It just came out a few months ago. This is again a card game, but very different in play style from Aeons End. So in this one, you start with a hand of cards, and then you're playing a card on your turn, and you're picking up a different card, and you're trying to manipulate your hand, basically, so that in the end of the game, you will have cards that go well together and match together and give you a bunch of points. The Automa, or the solo mode here, is really good. It sort of simulates another player that is taking cards and putting new cards out there and so on. And I found the tension that builds up in this one is really good, where it's fairly small, it's a quick to play game, and it's easy to set up, easy to get into. But the depth is really good in the game. There's a lot of depth, there's a lot to get into, and as you play it more and more, you really start to see the combinations and what you could combine and how to do it. And I really like that it's very tactical. You can have somewhat of a strategy, I guess, going in, but it's very much depending on what the Automa is doing. and what is happening, what cards show up, all that. You have to adapt as you play the game, and you have to be flexible, which is something I do enjoy a lot in board and card games, where the game changes, the situation changes, and you have to manage that instead of just having a like everything planned out from the beginning. That's my game taste varies obviously, but for me that is really good. And in Red Rising I get a lot of that. There's a lot of tactical decisions and adjustments to be made during the game, and every time I play it feels very different, because this, as you can see, there's a bunch of cards. You're not going to see that many of them off that deck each time you play, so there's a lot of replay value in this one as well. And there's books that this is based on. I haven't read them. I started reading the first one, but I understand from people that I talk to that if you have read the books, or you're into this Red Rising world and the universe of it, then that also adds to the game, of course. But for me, it wasn't a problem at all to enjoy the game or have fun with the game, even though I didn't know anything going in about the Red Rising books and so on. So that is my number 9. Now let's head to number 8. And at number 8 we have Lost Ruins of Arnak, and this is a video that I actually haven't made myself. This is my friend Mats on the channel who made this video. I played it solo myself, really enjoyed it, and I also look forward to a solo campaign that I will be playing, and I will also make a video playthrough series of that coming up here soon on the channel. In this game you're deck building in a way. Well, you are deck building, but not as much as you would do in like Aeons End. This is a slower deck builder in a sense. You're getting a few cards during the game. You're building up a deck, and then you're using the cards for two things. You're using them for resources or for effects, but you're also using them, you have to play them in order to put your workers out on the map. And then the workers will get effects and gather things or explore and so on out on the map. So I like this multi-use of cards. You have to make a decision. Do I want to keep this card for its effect, or do I want to spend it in order to, like Mats is doing here, to use the little car there to be able to drive out in the jungle and explore? A lot of interesting decisions. You also have this huge research track up there that you are going to try to climb up with your little tokens. This is like representing your researching things that you find in your adventure. This is like basically Indiana Jones, the board game or something. You're going out to explore ruins and temples to find artifacts and so on. And I really like the production of this game as well. It does add to the experience of the game. Very nice components and artwork and everything. And the gameplay is very smooth. I think I played solo in like 20-25 minutes. This goes really smooth. The Automa, just so easy to handle. And I really like that it has these... up there, it has these like stack of tiles that you flip in order to see what the Automa will be doing instead of cards. It just adds to the feeling of the tactile feeling of flipping these, thick tiles. And yeah, it's just so smooth to play. Really enjoy it a lot. Can really recommend Lost Ruins of Arnak. This is fun multiplayer as well, but we are here to talk about solo today, so that's what we're doing. So for solo gaming, Lost Ruins of Arnak and the solo campaign, I look forward to that one. I will get into that soon. So next up here is something that I didn't think I would have on a solo list ever. I didn't expect this to show up, but Keyforge, one of my favorite games of all time, got a solo mode, and this is kind of weird because I'm sitting in front of myself here, so you have to ignore that. Anyway, Keyforge, which is an awesome card play game where you have a set deck, but in the deck you have unique cards, like the composition of the different cards in your deck are unique. And then you play these, usually 2-player. I played this thousands of times, both online and offline, and I've been going to tournaments and playing a lot on the Swedish Keyforge scene and enjoyed it a lot. But then I got a little bit bored of it, or I didn't really have the energy to keep up with everything new coming for the game like a year ago. But then all of a sudden they announced Fantasy Flight Games like, yeah, we're gonna release a co-op and solo version for Keyforge. And I was so interested right away, and I've been playing this a bunch. This is the first one that I'm showing here. There has been a second boss released as well, like a second scenario that I am actually going to play just in a few days here. I'm getting the stuff. It's like print and play, so it's free print and play as well. So if you have Keyforge deck and a few tokens, then you can just download and print this. You can play it. It's so cool. Really enjoyed it a lot. This is a very good. This is like fighting a boss in a sense, and playing your cards, and the boss will put out like minions or like units, animals that you have to fight out there on the board. And the boss is not trying to forge a key, it's more like advancing, which I represent by the little Mansion of Madness tentacle guy up there moving on the tokens. It doesn't come with the game. But what it does is like it's going to advance a few times and it needs amber to do that. So it's just like it would be forging a key, right? So it feels a bit like, I mean, it feels like playing against a human opponent in that sense, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, so they can forge now. I have to steal or I have to capture their amber, have to, amber control. So really good how they managed to get this working, because it's not just like a substitute for, oh, you don't have anyone to play with, we do as Keyforge co-op or solo mode. It actually is a good way to play Keyforge, in my opinion. I really enjoy it a lot. And it's also a good way for me to get back to one of my favorite games and get like new interest and new energy to play it. So if you haven't played Keyforge, I can recommend this. If you have played Keyforge and you enjoy it, you have to get this one if you're playing solo. So fun. So yeah, Keyforge print and play solo, really love it. And my number 6 of this list is Monumental. This is again, card game deck builder. You see a theme there, right? It's my favorite mechanism in card and board games ever. So like hand management / deck building card games in general. I love it. This one is a real board game though. It's combined with, first of all, you have this wonderful play mat. So each player has one of these. Well, you don't have to have them, but they, there's a deluxe version for the game that I have. You build your deck and you play cards as a civilization themed game. Interesting though is that you're not like playing the cards from your hand. Instead, you're playing them out of this 3x3 grid, and then you're activating a column and a row every time it's your turn. So depending on how you do that, it's going to be very different. Like, do you need resources? Or are you going to use your resources by activating card effects and so on? Also have this map here, like map tiles, when they're like sort of area control, or like a combat, civilization, a combat stage, where you have one of the most beautiful miniatures. You can't really see them that well from the top here, but it's such a nice miniatures. It's the best miniatures I've ever seen for a board game. And that says a lot, they're beating Come On and all these companies. These miniatures are so good, so detailed, nice, plastic. And they also have like as you can see, they're not that standard gray. So I don't think I even will paint this. I usually like to paint games, but I'm not going to paint this because they look nice already. Like they already pop on the table. You already see the details, which is amazing. So the actual gameplay is fairly standard. So you're like getting better and better cards, which gets you more resources, gets you more good effects. Like you're gathering like resources to do the combat or move around on the map, which will get you rewards. You're not really fighting that much against your opponent, the Automa. This is a game I only played solo, by the way. I haven't played against my friends, but I want to at some point. But so the Automa is very good as well. Handled with just a deck, and if you flip cards, very easy to handle. It's easy to see how they're going to move on the map, which is something that usually could be a problem, I think, in solo modes for games where you have units on a map. That could be a bit tricky, like, oh, are they supposed to, if this happens, they're supposed to go this way or this way, and then it takes forever. But in this one, it's really smooth, actually. And I really like the card play part of it. I think that's the main thing, where you're building up. You can build like wonders and you get better cards. And it's also an interesting thing going on in this game where you have, as you can see here, some of the cards have this like blue banner. So you can attach them to another card. So when you activate that card, you get both the effects. I've made the solo playthrough here, but I also have the expansion that I haven't made a video for yet. So I think I will do that at some point. But I need to get back to this game. Such a good game, Monumental. I really recommend it. And my number 5 is a game that really surprised me. I didn't expect to like this much as I do. I mean, such a fun game. This is Dune Imperium. And in this one, I mean, I don't have any connection to Dune. I never, read the book or whatever. Never cared for it really. I don't know why, because I like sci-fi, so I guess I should get into it. But anyway, the game is so much fun, and especially in solo. I like this the best in solo, because it can be a fairly, in some ways, conflict-style game. You have some effects on cards and like surprise play something and get more strength in a combat and so on, which I might not be a huge fan of when it comes to playing against human players, because I don't like this like, haha, I have this. I don't like what that does to me or to my friends. But in a solo game, I don't mind being mean to bots. Not at all. And in this game, you play a simulated 3-player game, which at first also sounds like, you have to have 2 opponents. But it works so good. It works so good. It's like, wow, it's so smooth. You have one deck to control both the opponents. And basically they go out, they do things. This is a worker placement game, by the way. Again, this is like Lost Ruins of Arnak. You have a card, you play them to move your workers out on the map, or if you don't play them, then you get the resources at the end of your turn that you kept, like I'm showing here, which is a really interesting system as well. I really like this combination of worker placement and deck building. It's 2 of my favorite mechanisms, right? So that, it's kind of, popular right now, I think, in game design to combine those 2, and I am so happy for that. I just, bringing them on. I want more games with these combinations because really, really, really enjoy it. And again, the tension in this one surprised me. I didn't expect to be so involved, like so emotionally invested. I mean, it looks fairly dry in a sense. It's a board game with tokens and wooden pieces and whatnot, but I get really invested because the automas or the bots, they always do. It feels like they always do the exact thing that I don't want them to do. I'm like sitting there and I'm like, don't go there. Come on, don't go there. I need that place because it's so tight as well. Money is tight, resources are tight. You only have 2 or 3 workers. It's so tight. And then, of course, they, I flip the card and they go there. And I'm like, rage quit. I usually don't get that emotionally invested in solo gaming that I do with Dune Imperium. And even in this solo playthrough, I got, I got so annoyed at those bots. Really enjoyed Dune Imperium. Can really recommend it if you like solo gaming with this kind of sort of board and cards and deck building and resource management. There's so much going on in this game, and it's fairly quick as well. It's like 40 minutes or something when I play off cam, and it's so smooth. Just handle the bots so smooth. Just go there, do that, and it's my turn. I think a bit, I do my thing. Really enjoy it. All right, let's head to the next one. And next up is another game that I played a lot lately. This is the game I played the most the last 2 weeks. Marvel Champions. This is a game that came out in like 2019, but after I did my top 10 solo list there. But I didn't play it up until just a month ago. I don't know why. It kind of, I've been playing so much Keyforge. This was like another game from Fantasy Flight Games, a card game. I wasn't that into the Marvel theme either. I think 2 years ago, I've been watching a lot of Disney Plus and I've watched all the Marvel universe videos basically lately. So I got really into the theme and this whole universe and all the characters. And, it used to be that I like Spider-Man or I like Iron Man. But now I'm also like invested in Black Panther and all of these characters. And I have such a good time playing this. It's like a modular game because you can play different characters, and the characters themselves have like a base deck, but then they also. So this is very rare for me. This is an LCG, and it's a pre-constructive deck builder, which is something I usually never like. Like, you have to sit around and build your deck before the game starts. I love deck building, as I said, where you build up your deck during gameplay. But in this one, you're building your deck first, and then you're trying to it's more like a strategy game in that sense. You're setting up your deck, and then you're trying to execute it in the way that you thought about it when you planned it. But it's very easy to do because it has set, like you never change your character's card. You have a character's card, 15 cards, then you add some standard cards, so those you can change a bit, and then you add the sort of aspect card. So there's 4 different aspects. You could be aggressive, you can be protective, and so on. So the way these merge together makes it way more easy than if you have like, here's whatever points and just put together. This one makes it easier in that sense to deck build. It's more streamlined than a lot of the classic ones. Really enjoy it, and really like how also it's so thematic. Like you have your hero, and then you have different bosses you'll go up against, and the bosses have different styles and different ways to beat them, kind of like Aeons End in that sense. You have to find how to play your character and how to play your hero and against a certain boss, and then you start deck building like, this boss I never made it to beat it on like expert level or whatever, then maybe I should pull out these cards. I'll put in some other cards and try to see if that works better. It's like a trial and error process, and it's so satisfying when you manage to beat that boss. And in this game I play two-handed solo. I tried pure solo as well with just one deck, but I find it much more rewarding to play two-handed. I don't mind that at all. I know some solo gamers out there, you don't like playing two-handed in solo games. For me, though, it works really good with this one. And I think I'm used to it. Well, of course, I'm helping Draco out a lot. I'm playing a lot of solo two-handed in a sense. And I'm also playing, like I played Gloomhaven for hundreds of hours with 3 characters solo. So I played Spirit Island with 2 characters. I'm used to this stuff, but it takes a little bit to get into, and it's basically you gotta be a bit thinking about being 2 different characters at the same time and how they're gonna work together, because there's a lot of cooperation in this between the characters. So even on your turn, like even if it's Spider-Man's turn, Iron Man can do some actions to help out on that turn. Really interesting combo system. I feel that's lost if you play a pure solo. Really cool as well how each character is really thematic in the way it plays, their cards, their style. So if you play Iron Man, you start off fairly weak because and every character, you can also be like Tony Stark or Iron Man. You flip back and forth between those characters. So he goes home to his tool shop and builds on his suit, and you have to build up the suit. And once the suit is ready, then you can start dealing out really heavy damage and so on. Really thematic, really cool how they all work differently in that way, and it's such a good game. I just got a bunch of expansions, and I can't wait to just keep diving into this and play a lot, because there's a lot of content out of this, and more are coming, obviously. So it's a Fantasy Flight LCG game. Oh wow, Marvel Champions, so good. Had to be here on high up on my list. So here we go. But now let's head to a game that I like even a little bit more. Well, here we go. I did mention it in the last segment here, but Gloomhaven. But this time it is Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. This one came out in between these 2 lists that I'm making. In the first list, the original Gloomhaven was on there, of course. Spoiler. But now Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion is like a streamlined version of Gloomhaven. And when I first heard about this, I was a bit hesitant. I was like, okay, so it's just like introductory, tutorial style to get people into playing the actual Gloomhaven game. But no, it's not. It's a full game in itself. I haven't played it all yet. I played half or something. So fun. And again, I am playing two-handed in this, and I'm having a blast. This is just from one of my videos. I filmed the tutorial, the first 5 scenarios I have on video, and then I stopped because I wanted to. Then I just kept playing on my own. There's so much good to say about this game. It's like Gloomhaven is, one of my favorite games of all time, all categories. So Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion doesn't disappoint. Few things in between the games here. Really love how this booklet is used for the map. The setup is so much quicker and easier. I just flip the page and everything is there. It's so nice. Really love that. I really love this tutorial as well. It was good for me as well, because it's been like 2-3 years since I played a big Gloomhaven game. So it was good for me to refresh on how the game works and everything. And there's like keywords and there's like situations that you need to refresh. If you're a new player to Gloomhaven, awesome, just go play this, because the tutorial will take you step by step, introducing more and more. And then once you get through it, when you get to 6th scenario, you're playing Gloomhaven. So good. And yeah, wow, I'm having so much fun with this one. I'm excited to play the second half of it and play through it all. And then, of course, Frosthaven is coming. I don't know, I think it's next year, so have some time to prepare mentally for that. But yeah, really love Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. If you haven't played Gloomhaven at all, this is where you should start. If you have played Gloomhaven, you should play this as well. If you like this kind of system with the whole tactical combat and the card play, again, this is hand management. Again, back to that, how I love card games or card play in games. Here you have it in spades, where you're sitting there like, okay, I have to play one card top part, one card bottom part, and I have to coordinate, and then the other character. And that's why I like playing 2 or 3-handed as well, because then I have to find combinations, like plan for both of them, and my brain just works on overload. So I really enjoy it. Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. And now let's head to my number 2. So what could be better than Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion? Tapestry, of course. Tapestry is such an amazing game. This is one of my favorite games as well of all time. I really enjoy it, both multiplayer and solo, but especially for solo in a sense, because, well, these days I enjoy most games solo more than multiplayer, because it's so smooth and nobody's in the way, and like I don't have to sit around and wait for other people to do stuff. So I really love this one in solo. The Atoma here is amazing. I think this Atoma is so good. think it's the best one I've seen in solo mode for board games. So again, the civilization theme doesn't really matter, the theme here. It's mostly the mechanics and what you do in the game that is so much fun. The gameplay is really fun. You're climbing up these 4 tracks, and the automa is racing you. And there's like 2 automas basically you play against. There's one active automa and this one just basically not blocking, but trying to race you to get certain benefits, these landmarks that you want to place out on your little board there to score points and bonuses as well. Really good things in this game, in the solo game for this, is that it's so variable. So there's a bunch of different, just in the base box, there's like, 15 or something different factions or civilizations that you can play. And then the automa itself, it also has a few different civilizations that determines how it's going to play during the game. So depending on who you're playing against and what you are playing, and the cards that you get and the way things go, again, tactical, you will draw cards during the game and like, oh, okay, all of a sudden this opportunity showed up. Maybe I want to pursue that instead of what I was planning to do initially. Or maybe I should stick to my plan. It's so much fun. The decisions in this game is so fun. And the satisfaction of like when you get the combo to work. I also played the expansion recently. In the solo game, there's also a solo campaign with the expansion where everything is turned upside down. Basically, there's like scenarios, and all of a sudden you're not doing what you usually do in the solo game or in the game. Instead, you're trying to explore the whole map, or you're trying to conquer as much as you can. Really interesting things. I will get into a solo playthrough video series for that as well. I have done 6 solo playthroughs for this game, and I was planning to do all 12 for the base game. But then, other games came in between, and I'm getting back to this now. I really enjoy it. Tapestry is so good, and it was almost my number 1, but it's not. It's my number 2. So let's head to number 1. So number 1, the big one, it had to be my number 1. This is the game that have made the most impression on me, the largest impression in a positive way over the last 2 years, basically. This is Tainted Grail. Wow. And Tainted Grail here, I mean, I painted the miniatures. I started, getting all the stuff for it. I have all the expansions now and all that. I haven't played them yet, obviously, because, time. But I do intend to do that. There's like 2 big campaigns. In the game, it's a huge adventure. It's like, we have a character. In this case, I'm playing pure solo here in the video. I did try 2-handed as well, but I think in this game I prefer just 1, because it's a little bit of role playing as well, right? You get into the character. I like having this one character, and this game is mostly, there's a lot of course, like combat and things happening, leveling up, you're improving your skills, all that stuff that you expect from a role playing game. But the theme and the atmosphere of the game is the story. This is like a dark Arthurian legend where your character is like going out in the world, and you don't know what happened out there. There's some mysteries going on. There's like creatures showing up, nasty monsters and stuff that you need to fight. And it's all like enclosed in this weirdness and this fog that you cannot be in. So you need these menhirs that you need to light up, these huge miniatures that was awesome to paint as well. And they make it so that you get like a light showing, but they will burn out. So you have to light another menhir and keep going. And then you read from a huge book, or in my case, I played with the app, which I do prefer. And then you're faced with all these like options all the time, or like, there's a cave here. I'm just making something up now because I don't want to spoil anything, but there's this cave, dark cave. You can start going into it, and then something, might happen, and do you want to continue deeper in the cave? It might be dangerous, This game is fairly hard as well, and if you die, then you gotta restart. So it's a tough game in that sense. You can cheat a little bit. I think you can get like a second life, and when I played on the story mode, as it's called. It's a bit easier because I want to experience the story more than I want to like a challenge in terms of gameplay challenge. I want the story. I want to make my decisions, and then I choose something. It's like choose your own adventure, right? So I choose something, and then 5 hours later, because this game takes a while, that choice that I made will influence something. It's so cool. I really love it. It's all these like keywords that trigger different events happening in the world and in the game. Wow, such a story. It's such an amazing game here, an amazing feel, and the components and the atmosphere of the game is so good. and I really look forward to playing the expansions. There's like 3 more scenarios, and one of them takes place before this one, like before the world fell into darkness and so on, that I look forward to starting with that and just see how that evolves, and then probably go back to playing the main campaign and then play this third one. But I don't know when I will have time for that, but I will do that at some point. So I can really recommend Tainted Grail if you haven't played it. It's fairly dark, though, I should say that. You gotta be prepared for that, but I really enjoyed it, and there's always this like looming threat, and it's like, oh, it's so tough, but then it's also so satisfying when you actually make it through, or you pull through this challenge when you get to the next part of the story. Oh, such a good game, so much fun, and so many good hours of gameplay here. And this game is, as I said, it's story mainly, but it also has a really good gameplay mechanics as well, with the, again, hand management with your cards. You have like 2 decks, one for like combat and one for like encounters, basically. You can like debate with someone, and then maybe you like negotiate with a guard at the gate to a castle. Then if you fail, he might start attacking you. Then you go to the combat deck. It's so cool. Really cool system how you link the cards together in order to trigger combos to do damage or to progress the conflict that you're in. Really love Tainted Grail. That has to be my number 1. And this was the top 10 games, top 10 solo games. Again, I really needed to get back to doing another list like this, because again, I mean, it was no issue for me to pull up 10 really good games. My number 10, Aeons End, I love it. You know, all these games are so good. So don't take that like number 10. The difference between number 10 and number 1 in this list is perhaps smaller in a sense than in some other lists that I have made. So yeah, I can recommend all of these, and as you've seen, there's videos for all of these on the channel that you can go check out, and you will find links in the description. But you can also always, if you're curious about a game and a video that I made, you can always just search for the game name, like Tainted Grail Niramas, and you will find it on YouTube, or by Google even as well. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this top 10 solo games list. I sure did, playing these games, filming them, and then talking about them. Always love talking about board games. So, have a great evening, morning, or whatever you're watching. Take care. Bye-bye.
Be like Draco. Follow Board Games with Niramas on Facebook at BGW Niramas.